This is what I'm calling my ultimate camera rig for the LUMIX S5IIX for narrative filmmaking. I actually built this rig for a project specifically that we're going to be shooting in a few weeks, but I figured that I would go over how I built this and why I built this for this specific upcoming project. I'm going to go over all the pieces, how to assemble it yourself in case you want to make something just like this for one of your projects. Just to give a brief introduction to it, it can record Blackmagic RAW to the SSD here, and it has D-taps right here on the side, a place for follow focus, and a slot here where I can put a variable ND in case I need to be outdoors. And the entire rig is powered off of this one V-mount battery. My name is Dustin, your video tour guide, and be sure to keep your arms and legs inside your chairs at all times. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So I went ahead and I took apart all of the pieces to this rig so you can kind of get an idea of how many pieces that there are. There's actually not a lot of pieces. I did try to make this thing very light, very minimal, but also very effective and powerful. The reason that I decided that I needed to kind of build out my S5IIX is because in a narrative kind of environment or a kind of bigger production, I didn't really have a very good setup for, you know, rigging like a Teradek or some kind of monitor to my Blackmagic video assist. And I also didn't have a great place to have like a wireless follow focus mounted for a first AC. There are some things missing to this setup, kind of like a wireless follow focus, but I won't be operating that, so I just decided not to worry about it. Let's go ahead and start building this thing out though. First thing you're gonna need is obviously your camera, and then the small rig Black Mamba cage. This is my favorite cage. I honestly pretty much always leave it on both my S5II and S5IIX because it's just so light and so convenient, and so I wanted to integrate this cage specifically to this setup. Another reason I decided to use this cage as well is because of the lens choice. We are going to be shooting these on the Nisi Athenas. This is my specific kit that I bought. There is a review coming soon on them, and I will also likely put them up against my dual lens kit as well after I shoot this project. And so yeah, look out for that video as well. The next piece of this rig, I am using the Sigma MC31. You can use any mount you like. I also have the Miike, but one thing I will talk about in my review with these Athenas is that these are not compatible, at least with the Miike or Mikey PL to L mount version that I have. They do not work with this. So I am using the Sigma adapter instead. Just gonna go ahead and mount the lens as well. Like I said, these are the PL mount version. I decided to not go with L mount because PL mount version, that way I can also use this on different cameras or rent them out as well to other people. So for this next piece, this is called the small rig V-mount battery plate. Basically it unfolds like this, and then you can lock it and you can attach a V-mount to the back of this, right? We'll get to this V-mount in a minute, but the plate that you're going to need to actually mount to the back of this is the Nisi Rig camera cheese mounting plate. It's a universal top plate and it's applicable for Ursa Mini 4K. By the way, I have an entire Amazon list where you can go to the description and click this if you want to follow along or take a look at the whole kit, or if you watch this video and you decide that you want to build this kit for your S5IIX as well. The way you're going to mount this though, the first thing you're going to do is there is actually a rubber piece that was on here that I just peeled off so then I could get this plate flush with the back of this. You're going to take this plate and you're going to mount this bottom part right here to the highest threads that are on this V-mount plate. I apologize too, I don't know the name of the screws, and I think they came with some of these plates that I bought, and I just found the screws that worked best here, and so I apologize that I don't know the exact names. I think they're just like 1/4 screw, and they're different thread counts and whatnot, but hopefully you can find the exact screws you need. But these are the screws that I use to mount this back plate. Now for this next part, the reason why I like using the small rig cage as well for this, and this small rig V-mount battery plate is that there is an Arca Swiss on the bottom of this cage, and you can just slide it straight into here and you don't have to use an extra plate. It also makes it easy to dismantle this thing if you need to. So I'm going to line this up basically in the center of the viewfinder, but one thing you don't want to forget before you do this is pull your viewfinder out. So just line this up about center, and then there's a locking screw right here. We may have to loosen this in a bit, but the next piece that you're going to need is this Camvate multi-purpose extension cheese plate. This one I chose because there are some cold shoe mounts on here that I'll talk about in a minute. But there's a place right here, the second kind of groove right here, or whatever you say that, the second kind of like long slot here. You're going to use that to mount this onto the top of the cage. And you're going to use a little bit longer screws, and you're going to use 2 of them on the most front part of the cage to screw in. Sorry, I'm totally botching this. So you're going to screw these in kind of loose so that you can still slide the plate kind of back and forth like this. Then you're going to take these 2 back screws here, and you're going to screw into the back of this cheese plate that's on the top. One thing I just realized is that I tightened these screws on this V-mount plate too soon. You actually want to leave them a little loose so you can still kind of tweak it as you screw this plate in. So let's loosen those up just because I'm trying to get this as straight as possible. We're going to get this about center, this top plate here. Screw it down tight, or at least where you like. I like to have it center. Now I'm going to keep this bottom part a little loose as well because I'm going to line up this plate so it's center. And then I'm going to tighten this on the back here, and I'm going to lock that bottom plate. We're going to cinch this down as well. Then we're going to tighten this cheese plate on the back. Okay, and now we have our cage extension to our small rig. Pretty nice, huh? One thing that is nice about this V-mount back plate as well is that you can screw in rods and extend this if you need to put some mounting or any kind of equipment back here. Now the next thing that you're going to want to screw in here, you can kind of do this in whatever order at this point, but I'm going to put in this, it's called like a link skew. I don't know, but it's a D-tap to P-tap. I think that's what it's called. Basically, it's got 4 adapters for D-tap power, and then it plugs into one V-mount on the back. But this is going to mount right here on the back, and then there's also a slot here where you can take this one little screw and mount it on the back. I also like to center this one up and just screw it right in there. Doesn't have to be super tight, but just make sure it's snug. The next thing we're going to be using is this small rig NATO to 15mm rod clamp. So this is going to go to the very front of the rig, and I'm actually going to screw the first screw into the middle screw, and I have 2 of them in there just to make sure that it's really snug and it won't spin on me. But yeah, just screw these in, and then I'm going to make this rod go pretty much all the way to the left as well. Just make sure that it's straight and just cinch that down. Might as well just slide in this rod as well. There is kind of a sweet spot for this rod. I'm just going to screw it in there because I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to have it slide into. Next, we're going to take this Camvate 15mm rod clamp with a quarter thread. And basically we're going to take this small rig universal cold shoe mount, and we're going to screw this into the top part of this guy. Then we're just going to take this and put this on the back of our rod. Probably should have put it on first before I screwed it on, but that's okay. And then just make sure it's fairly straight. There we go. The next part of this is this Nietzsche NATO to NATO clamp. Now this thing is super cool. The reason why I'm not using the one that's included with the Condor Blue top handle is that it's just locked. You can't really adjust it at all. But on this one, let me just go ahead and put it on and I'll show you why it's so cool. Let's go ahead and move on to why I'm using the Condor Blue handle. One is because you can slide this in, this SanDisk 2TB SSD, and then you can slide the handle on. Now here's why this is so cool, this little neatsy NATO to NATO clamp, is that I can actually spin this top handle any direction I want, and I can also spin it down like so. When I need like this, you can't get the SSD out. With this little neatsy clamp, I can spin it out, pull the SSD out, and change my SSD very quickly. And if you wanted to make sure that this SSD doesn't come flying out, you could even scooch this all the way back right up against this cheese plate on the back. So then, yeah, a little extra security there. Now I'm going to go ahead and start putting the cables on here. There's kind of like a method I came up with on how to best put these cables in here so they're kind of hidden and out of the way. As far as the cables go though, this is just the USB-C to USB-C that comes with the handle, but I'm using a small rig HDMI cable. This is the thinnest one I could find that was a little bit too short than I wanted, but it's long enough. That's why we're using that cable. This is just a D-tap to, what is that, 12 volt locking pin. And then I've got the Condor Blue D-tap to USB-C to power my camera as well. I'm gonna go ahead and start with putting on the V-mount battery. The V-mount battery that I'm using for this video is the Andy Cine 95C. This is actually a really cool V-mount battery and it's fairly affordable. I'm going to be using a number of different probably V-mount batteries. It's got USB-C on it. It's got a little 12 volt right here. It's got a USB and there's 2 D-tap ports as well on it. You can see the amount of charge on this little screen here, and you can change it between USB-C and DC power. Cool little V-mount battery, and I think Andy Cine told me that they are offering a version of this for only like 70 bucks. It's a little more simpler than this one, but still 70 bucks for a V-mount battery, it's pretty good. So now the method to putting this cable in here, let me just go ahead and plug in all of my D-tap cables first. So the first one I'm going to plug in is the USB-C. Then I'm going to plug in the 12 volt one. And now we're going to kind of like group these cables together right here. And then this just came with my USB-C Condor Blue D-tap cable, and I used it to kind of lock these cables together. So that was kind of comes in clutch. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take the Condor Blue, because this thing is kind of like big and in the way. You can actually perfectly slide it right under in between the cheese plate and your little viewfinder down here. So that's really nice. And then you can also take this guy. Before you do that, you can actually loop it. So make a little loop like so. You can loop this and put it above your viewfinder before you plug it in. It just kind of keeps the cable nice and snug there. And then you can plug it into the back of the V-mount. So now I'm going to take this USB-C. I'm going to take the cable over the top, spin this around so you can see. I'm going to take it over the top of this cable. Just leave it there for now. And this cable as well. We're going to bring this underneath and bring it up to where the monitor is going to be. Might as well just plug this in as well. Next thing is this is just a small rig cold shoe to monitor mount. I mount it to this screw on my Blackmagic Video Assist, this very bottom right screw, and then we just slide it into the cold shoe mount here. You actually want to slide this as far left as you can. You'll see why in a minute. This is why this setup is not completely perfect, but it'll work for our sake. We are mostly shooting on a tripod for this shoot, so it'll be fine. Then this guy can plug into the bottom of the Blackmagic, so we've got memory. This bad boy can screw into the Blackmagic and lock it in. Okay, so now those are all plugged in, and we just got to take our HDMI cable. We're almost to the end of this. Bear with me here. And we're going to use one little Mondo tie to screw into the side of our cage here. Make sure that's nice and snug. So now I'm going to take this USB-C cable. I'm going to kind of pull it a little tight, make sure that those stay plugged in, but I'm just going to get that in right there. And then I'm also going to take the HDMI cable and feed it in there as well without making it too tight. Then we can plug these in down here. Just kind of get as much as this down there as I can so it's not putting stress on there. There we go. And then this guy, I'm going to plug it in, and then I'm going to actually pull some of this HDMI cable back up to my monitor. And you can actually take the monitor cable up through here. I think I actually did that on the first time. So I'm just going to put it in between here and then pull it back up. That way it just kind of sits a little more hidden under there. And there we go. Just the last thing is our matte box, which will just slide on to the front here. Just lock it in. There you have it. So I've got a lot of different options here, which is really nice. One thing, if you have big hands, it is kind of hard to grab this as a top handle. You kind of have to put a finger here and then grab it underneath here just to avoid these cables here. I wouldn't grab here just because you might run the risk of accidentally unplugging something, but I've got 2 extra ports here for like the Teradek, for example, and also the follow focus, which will just go right here on this rod that's sticking out. A lot of different options, really nice, very compact. Let me just go ahead and turn it all on. This is the 85mm Athena. It was just handy, so I used that. And then you can kind of see here that I can also monitor the voltage on this guy. So a lot of different fail safes and ways to just get information on what's happening on this rig. And like I said, this monitor can actually spin sideways. It doesn't hit my monitor, so I can still grip it like this. Got full control of the camera right here. And the thing that I love about this setup too is I still have access to all of my buttons on the camera, so I don't have to rely just on the touchscreen right here. I can still click everything in here. So if you were using a lens that had autofocus, I can still click between my buttons here. Can still adjust each side of my knobs or dials, whatever you call them up here. Basically, everything is still accessible for me with this setup, which is something that I wanted, but I knew that we were going to have a bit more things on here because, you know, we're going to have a director and he's going to want to live view the shot. So I was like, well, I'm going to need to power the Teradek and I want to make it easy for us. Same with having a remote follow focus, going to have a first AC. So I wanted to come up with something that was going to work well in a narrative kind of environment. Oh, and as far as like having a boom mic attached to this as well, there is still a cold shoe mount right here where you could slide in a mic and be able to, you know, obviously this brow will get in the way, but if you take the brow off, you could still have a boom mic. Or if the brow is getting in the way, you can also put it on the top of the Condor Blue handle. So then this could still go up fairly high. Yeah, I think you could still get it above it. So it's another kind of good option there. The last thing I forgot to touch on is that reason that I didn't use a 15mm rod to this monitor mount. This little right angle piece sticks out a little too far. And so I kind of have to use this little setup down here with this so it doesn't hit the Condor Blue handle. But if you were using a different handle, you could, and then just use like an SD card on the Blackmagic. That's another way you could go about it. And yeah, there's still tons of options for mounting here. Even with this little, you know, V-mount battery right here, I can still get it off and I can still mount a bunch of stuff back here if you wanted to. The reason why I didn't mount anything, like for example, this thing right here, is we may be using bigger V-mount batteries. And so I wanted to mount it there just in case we use a way bigger V-mount battery. But that is an option to also mount it back here. Then you could even view the voltage as well without having to look there. What we're shooting is actually a pilot episode for a project in the works, and I'd love to give more information, but you'll see it soon. Let's just put it that way. It's exciting. I'm really excited about it. It'll be kind of one of my first narrative pieces that I've shot outside of college, so big deal for me. Got a team of talented guys as well. And if you like this setup, maybe somebody who's smarter than me and cooler than me could like 3D print a little like, you know, thing right here that could screw in. So then my monitor could have a little place to just kind of rest as well. There is room for that You could even print it all the way up to here to keep these cables a lot more tidy. And if you wanted to go real crazy, you could even print something here to kind of enclose all of these cables as well. There's a lot of directions you could go with this, but yeah, let me know your thoughts on this build, and let me know if there's things that you would change on it or if you liked it. And like I said, if you want to view everything that I used in this build, there is a link in the description that will take you to an Amazon link that will show you literally everything, plus like 1 or 2 extra options as well. And if you decide to buy from that link, it actually supports me, so thank you. I'll also provide links to a B&H version, at least to some of the gear, if I can find it all. So yeah, if you prefer B&H, I got you covered. And also, if you like this video, you made it this far, so you might as well just subscribe and you know, hit the like button because it helps and it's free. So anyways, until the next video, happy filming.